submission this morning is submitter number 86. It's Luke Ross, page 149. Luke, morning.
Morning. Morning. I'm Luke. I'm a video producer. I'm just moved into first home in Silver Street. I'm glad. So great to be here, and thanks for hearing me. It's the first time I've done any type of submission. So I wanted to touch on two things from the annual plan submission. One, the basketball gambling policy, and the other one is the curbside recycling component. So I started with the basketball gambling policy. It's the first time I'd sort of read anything about this topic, so it's quite interesting. I'm really enjoyed the report. After reading it, my conclusion was I would ask the councillors just to consider pivoting to option 3, the stinking lid. The reason for that is obviously it's a mixture of social benefit for the community, along with some of the gambling harm that's caused by non-casino gambling machines. But for me, having any sort of funding model that relies on something that causes harm in the community isn't really the right way to go. Especially some of the report highlighted that the option would allow a fair bit of time for alternative funding models to be allocated to take up the slack from the reduction in funds coming from the scope machine. And that really sealed the deal for me. It seemed like quite a soft touch approach that would reduce harm, especially disproportionate harm. Obviously, Māori and Pacifica communities are affected more by these machines, by these venues. So yeah, that was my first thing I wanted to just mention. Is I feel like the soft touch approach is good and would be a good way forward. Pivoting over to the curbside recycling. This is the part of the annual plan submission that made me want to come and speak to you guys. And it's because I am a first home buyer. It's the first time I'm having to pay rates, which has been a nice eye opener. But I'm a Wellington City boy mainly for my entire life, and I genuinely had an expectation that all councils across New Zealand did fund curbside recycling. So I was actually genuinely quite surprised when I realised I had another bill to pay. My rates bill is around $4,400 per year, and on top of that, we're currently paying for a $180 per year low-cost bin, which is a really small 80-litre bin, collected fortnightly. And we did that because it was the cheapest option. For me, when I was reading a little bit about this issue and sort of how it's tracked, I was surprised when one of the reasons to not do it was around rate increases. Based on what was in the document of around, I think, $3 per week, or about 3.5% increase to rates to introduce the service. I did some maths on my phone on the way here, and that was cheaper than what I currently pay for my one low-cost bin, collected fortnightly. I pay again $180 per year for that. I think a 3.5% rate increase would increase my rates by about $150, and that would obviously include recycling as well as rubbish collection. But mainly as well, I think it's less about the money, which I think there's a strong argument in terms of providing a uniform service to all ratepayers. I think that is cheaper, and I think lots of ratepayers get benefit from that. But more than that, I think it's about the environmental impacts. I'm quite privileged. I can go to the recycling centre once a week and drop off my recycling because I have time and I have a car. But that's not everyone's situation. And there's lots of barriers to entry for recycling. Recycling is hard enough with recycling labels and things that aren't very clear for consumers to be able to recycle confidently. So I think really the biggest thing is we need to do anything that we can to reduce barriers to entry for recycling, and having bins provided to people every ratepayer really removes a big barrier. I had some stats written down on my phone, but I think everyone kind of knows, the reduction in waste. The reduction in waste, and I personally think that we should be doing more than the bare minimum for recycling and waste minimisation in general. I think recycling is expected. And I think that more than that, I think people expect the council to be quite proactive in this space. And I don't know what that looks like. But I think there's a mood, but for this to be taken seriously and for us to do more than what's expected. I can't quite remember what the central government stance is around. I know that there were some commitments made and then some commitments retracted. But yeah, I would urge for organics to be included in any sort of recycling scheme. I think that is going to be the way it will be in 10, 15 years time anyway, regardless, across the country. But yeah, I think to front foot that is the way to go. Yeah, I think that's me. Really.
Thanks, Luke. Did you have any, when you're talking about your stance on the gambling class 4, had you had put any thoughts to knowing what alternative funding might take up the slack?
No. No, I haven't.
Yeah.
I would be curious to know at what rate the reduction in funds accumulated from poker machines would be, like how much money per year over a set time. That wasn't very clear in the documentation. How many poker machines would be taken out of service over a set period. Yeah, I think Kiwis are fairly creative. I think both in forms of entertainment and in forms of funding. I feel like yeah, pokies at the end of the day, right? They're forms of entertainment. So if we could replace that and charge a levy, like there's lots of ways that people can have fun in Upper Hutt. And I think people also want to support community groups. So whether that's increasing charges with that communicated very clearly that a portion of that is supporting groups. I think that people do want to support, but it's just about communicating that really clearly. And yeah, ideally in 50 years' time, I hope that poker machines sort of won't be a big form of entertainment anywhere. I hope that they'll be replaced by it.
Councillor Bentley.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you for coming to submit, and especially being such a new resident. On recycling, if we went ahead with curbside recycling, would you like us to keep the station open, or do you think we should close it and save that cost?
Probably closing it. I mean, it does. Yeah, if bins were provided to every ratepayer, it would become a whole lot less valuable, that station, unless there's need.
Yeah. We're only proposing to do urban recycling, so rural would miss out. So there's a demand for that station to stay open.
If there's demand and residents that would need it, I think that it should stay open. I mean, I'd be curious to know the cost of expanding to the rural collection as well, but I'm not very familiar with those costs. So
just one thing. Thank you, Worship. The low cost bin that you mentioned, was that rubbish or was that recycling?
Just rubbish.
Just rubbish.
Yeah.
Okay.
The cost for low cost bins and I think waste management ranges from $450 to $550 per year for the full weekly rubbish collection standard bin and the recycling fortnightly collection.
Councillor Niall.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just to clarify your thinking around gaming, are you thinking that we get some revenue from the gambling?
That gets put in directly to community groups. That was my understanding.
No, we have no, that is all dealt with by Department of Internal Affairs. We have no benefit from, unless a community group applies to, but it does not come via the council.
So the poker machine revenue that's generated, that goes into more of a general fund that can be applied from any group across the country. It's not
any group. Yeah, it's a complicated matter, but let's just say the money does not come through council.
Yes.
Councillor Holderness.
No, Councillor Bentley asked my question. Thank you.
Councillor Carson.
Thank you. Hi, Luke. Are you aware that there's a difference between pubs that have gaming machine and clubs like working men's clubs, RSAs, cosmopolitan clubs that have gaming machines? In the case of clubs, working men's clubs, etc., the proceeds from the gaming machines are all used within the club to keep the club operating. and then they also can make grants. So if your desire not to see any gaming machines in New Zealand, that would mean the closure of every club, working men's club, cosmopolitan club, and probably RSAs in New Zealand. And hence derive people from their source of entertainment that they have by going and social.
Okay, questions.
So I'm just saying that is it. The question was, are you aware? Worship.
It's interesting to hear the nuance, especially between different venues. I mean, I would just say this is that like that's a form of entertainment, right? And for some people, there's obviously benefit to the venue, and there's benefit to people who are deriving healthy forms of entertainment from that. But also, that's not the only form of entertainment for people, and I think that like it's on everyone to help brainstorm ways that we can replace unhealthy, addictive methods of entertainment. Like there are other ways, right, to entertain people within a venue that isn't just poker machines. Poker machines do disproportionately affect certain parts of the community. So I think that, yeah, if there was no poker machines, I'm sure venues and others would find other ways to entertain themselves. We're pretty creative.
So thank you, Luke. So as the councillors discussed, decide which way we go with the recycling. In fact, the reality of it is we can have any type of recycling we like, gold plated, but at the end of the day, the decision's about how much people are prepared to pay for it. That's the issue. But so we'll actually work through that to come to finalise how we approach the future with recycling. Tommy, before you go, bought your first home in Upper Hutt. You said you're a Wellington boy. Besides the recycling thing, have you made the right decision to come to live here?
I've loved my time here so far.
Well done.
It's only been a couple of months. But I just visited H2O Extreme for the first time a few weeks ago. Some to a swimming lesson. So it's great.
Go down the slides.
I did. I got three free slides. So, yeah.
Well, you've got something because I've never had
So no, loving the hospitality, and it's a great place to live.
Thank you. Thanks, Luke. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next submitter this morning is submitted number 103, Judi Huxedurp from Upper Hutt Autism Group. Morning.
Morning.
Morning. It's page 155.
I completely forgot what I wrote, and I didn't plan for this either. So I quickly went through. There seems to be a lack of awareness of what's going on in the community. How is this going to change? This is related to page 5 of the booklet. Where the annual plan says it truly matters in our community. How does this happen? It seems the community needs to come to the council. The council never comes to the community. Though I will caveat that, saying I got a message this morning from somebody in the council saying we should catch up for coffee. Don't know what that means. Then I have the recycling. I'm also with low cost bins. I love the service. I have 3 bins. I have a green waste bin, which I can use my organics for. That's not a proposal in the council. I have my recycling, which doesn't fit the huge amount of cardboard that is left over from everything that gets cut out for the art groups of the Upper Hutt Autism Group. Please keep our recycling. Also, I'm very picky about my cardboard because if you ever cut through thick cardboard to make numerous stars for Matariki, your hand gets really sore. So please, it costs more. The other thing I'd like to take into account is even if it is a third-party organisation, the council will require an overseer. Has that additional salary been taken into account for the cost? The current private system works for me, and we do have the recycling. Low-cost bins is quite cheap too. The next I'm going to talk about poking machines. And I'm going to go, oh, the joy, the lights, the noise, the dopamine hit. The families that have to go without rent, the families that have to go without food, the families who get beaten because the money has gone. Poker machines aren't wonderful things. Also, they give to community groups. Actually, technically, they give to registered and incorporated community groups. So in 7 years, the Upper Hutt Autism Group has been running, helping the 130 families in the area. We have never had any money from pokie machines. So the pokie money doesn't include any food. That includes tea and coffee for a support meeting. Anything educational. They don't do mobile phones, so they say they do supply phones. You need a venue to have a landline. And if you don't have a venue and you're floating around King Lion Hall and the library and whatever coffee shop and does the strongest coffee and has the quietest music, you can't have a phone where people contact you. And I had 4 phone calls last week of people that had suicide plans. It's my money. It's actually the council's money that pays for those phone calls for those people that are alive this week, not pokie money. There are no individual grants going, there are no entry fees for activities, there are no projects outside the area of where the pokie machine is. And if it's something like rent for the venue so that you can put your landline phone in, they only pay for 50% of it. So the community group is still in charge of finding the other 50%. So that's the space. Maybe the council could request that the pokie money machines community service fund could come to the council to be given out by the council that knows who those community groups are. That's just a thing. Then I want to mention the Cosy Club, because I did watch yesterday and there were a few launches at the people that said we need the pokie machines. I have water done well. Do I need? No, that's a separate. Because otherwise I just talk really, really fast. The Cosy Club. The pokie money goes to the adjuncts in it, so it doesn't really help the community, it just helps the people that are members of the Cosy Club. It does pick one group throughout the year to fund, to support their big Kickstart Heart Foundation. They're not little groups that help around Upper Hutt. They used to, but have you ever put in an application for the Cosy Club? Because it's a revenue stream for them, because after you have finished that application, you need at least 4 drinks to get over that application. It is that stressful. And then lastly, alcohol. Make it more and more and more expensive. Get some money from it. If it's by a school, make it 120%. It's by a school. They're targeting a dedicated event of gullible people. And if it happens to have a vape shop attached to it, make it through the roof so people can't even walk in there. Those are all my comments.
Do you have any comments to make on the water?
On the water, yes, okay, the water.
Quickly, you can get.
Oh. On local water done well, I'm just going to say there was not a lot of information in the document that I could read, but I have this question for you. We're talking about water. Is it a new resource? Have we never had it before? Because that's what the conversation feels like. It feels like, oh no, we've got water now. We've got to do something about it. 3 years ago, we had 3 waters. So we had it coming up. It was a known event. We've always had water in Upper Hutt. Most of it didn't have algae running through it. And then I thought, as I sat in Sydney waiting for my son to be born with my mum, she was working on a submission for the council to discuss water. So what's the point of me talking about it? Because you didn't listen to her, and she's way greener than me. What's the point? You didn't listen back then, you're going to listen now. We can't go back to the old system because there's more houses. You just let them grow. I feel like I'm standing in Sneeville, which is a Seuss city, which the Lorix is on the outside. So I will just say, let it grow, let it grow, let it grow. Let it die, let it die, let it die. Should we be planning on having to pay for bottled air soon. That's it.
Thank you, Judy. Any questions? Thank you. Thanks very much. Our next submission is submission 136, Philip Clegg, who is withdrawn. Our next one submission is Niall Miller from TAB New Zealand. Niall, welcome. Page 3. Over to you. Yep.
We've got a presentation.
Presentation. Yep, we'll get set up.
Right, well, good morning, my worship. Good morning, councillors. My name's Niall Miller from the TAB. We've been called many things over the years, but our current form is officially the TAB New Zealand, which is a statutory body created under the Racing Industry Act to provide New Zealand's betting and wagering services. On the 1st of June 2023, we entered a 25-year strategic partnership with Entain Australia to deliver wagering and broadcasting services across New Zealand. This partnership brings in much needed injection of cash and technological services for our customers. From August 2024, our Class 4 operation is trading under the Bobby Foundation. Entain has the exclusive use of the TAB branding, and the difference between us as the TAB being the statutory body and Entain opening the stores or operating the stores was a little bit confusing, so we chose to operate under the Bobby Foundation. Who the hell is Bobby? Bobby was the nickname given to perhaps New Zealand's greatest racehorse, Bailap. Every bet placed with the TAB returns to the national sporting organisations for which the sport is bet on, Sport New Zealand and the 3 racing codes. For the 12 months to July last year, we distributed 225 million to racing and 26.5 million to sport across both wagering and Class 4 operations. With respect to the gambling policy, TAB supports options 1 and 2 as a reasonable approach given the current regulations that are currently in place. The continuation of a suitable relocation policy to strike lockdowns being minimising potential harm and also allowing the business to adjust to a natural or otherwise disaster that can be outside of its control. Given the fact that we operate both online and on a land-based operation, we oppose sinking lids for TAB to define the material because people can bet any time they want to on their phone. What is a TAB venue? It's a standalone venue that must be owned or leased by the TAB and used exclusively for wagering services. It does not include the social pods or kiosks at bars or clubs. It's part of our wider wagering channel offerings, including both apps and the on-course betting facilities. Standalone venues simply provide a bigger space to provide more odds for races. The TAB has continued to advance its harm minimisation and sustainability approach while laying the groundwork for further improvements to be delivered through the strategic partnership with Entain. TAB New Zealand conducts its businesses activities with integrity and is committed to providing safe and enjoyable environments for customers to wager responsibly. TAB New Zealand has a statutory obligation to minimise harm. All standalone TAB New Zealand venues are installed with facial recognition technology, combined with significant work that has been undertaken to digitise our problem gambling gallery, so we can have real-time and accurate information to identify potential problem gamblers. TAB New Zealand provides ongoing problem gambling awareness training to all employees. ATMs are prohibited from TAB New Zealand venues. We have CCTV to monitor both customers and staff. We do not sell alcohol and we have modest trading hours. The current TAB New Zealand policy is reasonable. There is a current environment of good government regulations increased in the last 18 months. We have a very low problem gambling rate in New Zealand. The restrictions accelerate the migration to online gambling spend, particularly with overseas that have no community grants and currently pay no taxes. TAB New Zealand, with all the other gambling providers in the country, provide a problem gambling levy, which is approximately $20 million a year to the Ministry of Health to support problem gambling and increase public awareness. When it comes to TAB betting, less than 10% of presentations are for TAB wagering. Overseas online gambling. The TAB New Zealand estimates that currently between $150 to $200 million per annum is lost overseas, mainly to Australia, for wagering, and that around $700 million is spent on online gambling. The government has announced online casino licenses from the start of next year. There'll be 15 licenses up for grabs. They will pay tax and they will pay a license fee, but they will be allowed to advertise, and they will advertise heavily. They will have also the ability to protect people's prizes, which is actually a good thing. But in comparison to land-based gambling, they will have much higher bet limits and they will have much higher prize limits for people to chase. Based on our research, we believe that the annual compound annual growth rate for online casinos is about 30%, and it is growing year by year. This is just card deposits, by the way. Based on web traffic, see there that there are around sort of 3.5 million visits to online casinos each month. And this is continuing to grow year on year. If I just use Sky City as an example, Sky City operates an online casino via Malta, because you're actually currently prohibited to do so in New Zealand. They estimate that they make $25 million profit in the calendar year of 2023, and they represent around about 4% of the online gambling casino market in New Zealand. The bigger players there, Jackpot City, Casino, and Swing City, and Leo Vegas, they will be coming next year to obtain licenses, without doubt. And this is not even compared to companies like Flutter, which operate in the UK. That is the end of my presentation, and I'm happy to take.
Thanks. Niall. Any questions? Councillor Newell.
Thank you for that. Your sort of commentary at the end there, where you're talking about the potential harms that may come from loosening the online gambling. So are you suggesting that that would take away from TAB gambling? Or, you know, what's the connection there?
They're a little bit separate. Obviously, currently TAB has legislation through Parliament at the moment to monopolise wagering, which is basically to exclude Australian bookmakers entering New Zealand and dealing with our customers. So we believe that that will solve around 75% of what we refer to as leakage to Australia. With regard to the online casino market, that is, it's going to be, you know, it's going to be quite messy.
Councillor Bentley.
Thank you, Worship. The pokies that you have in TAB venues, are those funds distributed the same way as other pokies are in the community?
Not quite. We've got what we call an applied license. So most of the other Class 4 operators have a distribution model where they actually distribute all the money. The TAB uses 80% of the money through the Class 4 to support the racing industry. That's to fix roofs on stables, it's to fund a mental health awareness through the jockeys and drivers, because they're under obviously a lot of pressure. And we, irrigation, drainage at race courses, things like that, synthetic tracks in the past. And we leave 20% to do grants for amateur sporting organisations across the country.
Any other questions? Thank you, Noel. Thank you very much. Thank you. Our next submitter is Upper Hutt Bowling Club, Chris Kerr. Submitted, it's on page 6.
Your worship, I'll express that compliment and I'll move my chair back, so I'm not part of hearing
Morning, Chris.
as per the advice from legal counsel.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. First of all, I'm not a public speaker, so please forgive me if I stumble a wee bit. My name's Chris Kerr. I'm here representing the Upper Bowling Club. I'm one of the secretary. My submission this morning is in support of my written submission on the proposed increase in alcohol licensing fees. What I want to cover today was the cost of special licenses for hosting functions, some background. Our club, like the majority of bowling clubs and many sports clubs, rely on the hiring of our facilities to generate a small but significant portion of our overall budget. All our functions are small, less than 100 guests. The labour for hosting functions is voluntary, i.e. bar staff, cleaning, etc. We're able to charge fairly aggressively in terms of hiring costs. 60% of our functions involve playing of bowls, while others are typically birthday parties, anniversaries, etc. We probably do about 20 functions a year. Our hireage charges currently can vary based on several factors: the type of function, the number of guests, whether organisations have hired our facilities previously, etc. So obviously, any increase in the fees for special licenses are going to result in us having to increase our hireage charges. The sort of licenses we typically have, which is the last one, the proposed increase from $63 to $108 represents an increase of over 60% over the current charges. This in turn will result in our charges increasing between 25% to 50%. And obviously this could potentially impact our ability to hire our facilities, especially if the increase was applied at a single date. And I'm sure we're not the only organisation, obviously, that would be impacted. We would submit that it would be more reasonable to spread the impact over a 3-year period, which is one of the options the council paper. My final point concerns a proposed introduction of a $100 fee for special licence applications not submitted within the 20 working day period. We submit that this, we acknowledge that this impacts the District Licensing Council and other parties. However, as per our written submission, this is generally caused by the hiring party not confirming the function outside that 20-day period. At that point, we've generally given them a proposed costing and any the implementation of the $100 fee could potentially impact our ability to host the function. and potentially would cause the function to be cancelled. We understand that there has to be some sort of fee, but we would submit that a $30 charge would be more reasonable. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Chris, any questions, Chris? No questions? Thank you, Chris. Thanks very much. Our next submitter is submission number 143, and it's Lisa Beighton, is that right? Lisa from Cosy Club. Welcome. That's page 159.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today. On behalf of the Cosy Club, we have entered submissions both on the gaming policy and also the alcohol fees. We've all had that submitted, so I'm not here just to tell you what we've already written. I really wanted to take the opportunity just to highlight what the club means to our community. So for those that I haven't had the pleasure of meeting today, my name is Lisa Beighton. I'm very proud of being the Cosy Club. The Cosy Club has proudly served our city for 65 years. We're not just a venue, we're a community institution, a place where people connect, celebrate, participate and belong. We have over 6,500 members, the majority of them all local, and we're one of the largest employers in the city with more than 60 staff. These are real jobs for local people, offering stability and pride. But our value extends far beyond employment or hospitality. We offer a diverse range of cultural and sporting activities, from darts, cue sports and card games to wine appreciation, live theatre and seniors social groups. Whether it's for competition or connection, we provide a place for it. We also support external groups by offering our facilities free of charge. Age Concern, for instance, uses our space for events and workshops. The Upper Hutt Ukulele Group and Lower Arts Society also meet at the club regularly without any venue hire costs, and these groups thrive because we can support them. Our gaming operation is run with care, compliance and community at heart. We currently operate 30 machines, which represents approximately 20% of the city's total machines. Last year, our gaming profits reached over 2.3 million, all of which was reinvested locally. And this supports our facilities, our 20+ sporting and cultural adjuncts, but also provides grants to external charities as well, although we are required, like the TAB, to mainly apply our funds. But every dollar stays in Upper Hutt and every dollar counts. We take harm minimisation extremely seriously. Facial recognition technology, trained staff, active monitoring and intervention protocols are standard at our club. We regularly work with internal affairs and propaganda providers to also add our input and to ensure that we are offering the latest in training for our staff. We care for our members because they are part of the community. We also work to remove the stigma around gaming. When it's done right, gaming is a great form of entertainment, and that's exactly how we treat it. I'd like to take a moment just to acknowledge Councillor Chris Carson. Your long-standing contribution to our club as the former treasurer. You were instrumental in building financial foundations on which we stand today. That legacy lives on in how we operate and the role we continue to play in our community. But we are facing real pressure. The current economic environment is incredibly tough out there, whether you're a not-for-profit, a hospitality venue, or any of the other amazing amount of hats that we kind of wear. And increasing layers of compliance from both local and central government are making it harder for responsible operators to do what they do best and do it well. We're not opposed to regulation at all, but it needs to be purposeful. When compliance becomes about appeasement rather than addressing real issues, it drives out the good operators, while those who never play by the rules remain unaffected. my learned friend talking about online gambling, that is a massive threat going forward. And I do believe in 10 years from now, we'll be looking back at Class 4 gaming and saying they were the good old days because we could support our people. And who loses in that scenario? The community. We believe the current policy strikes the right balance. It ensures safety, supports local fundraising and protects community wellbeing. We respectfully ask the council to retain the current machine cap and to remove the aid to the other community facility from the policy so it can be applied fairly and effectively. We invite any of you to come and visit us online, see what we do firsthand, meet our members, experience the positive impact that we have. We're incredibly transparent. Chris knows I would talk with highly off a donkey, especially when it comes to gaming and the role that we play in that ecosystem. I'd also just like to really quickly clarify what the speaker earlier said about that we have a charity of the year. Our charity of the year is not funded through Pokey proceeds. It is funded from a variety of other fundraising that we do from our housing, charity housing, from golf tournaments, from some staff social things that we do as well. So it's everything but pokies. Yes, we do give some grants, but I just want to say those ones are a wee bit special. So thank you for your time, your consideration and supporting a policy environment that enables responsible, community-focused operators like us to thrive. And on behalf of our members, thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. Thank you. Any questions for Lisa? Councillor Hammond.
George. What hours are you open for poker?
Essentially, whenever the bar is open. So 9 o'clock in the morning through till when we finish night. We have a licence that goes to around 2 in the morning, but we don't very often utilise it. Well, it's very handy to have in some events and
That one, please, Jack, something. You have, or Cosy Club, sorry, have 20% of the. Would you be the biggest users, or the people would come to you the most out of all the others? And would you say?
as in for players?
Yes,
or,
yeah, just the players.
Fun.
Yeah, we've got details of the money, but just the players.
Well, I think collectively on one site, yes, but that's because we have more seats available. We also do invest heavily on new equipment because it is a form of entertainment, and there's no point just having a poker machine because it's a poker machine. Whereas if you can have a poker machine because it does add some, has some good features and things, then that's kind of why we invest in it. So we do keep our fleet fairly modern. So it's nice, it's safe. You have to come through reception beforehand. A lot of our members told us that they prefer to be somewhere where they're known. So kind of, I'd probably say we would be the main, many. Sorry, I'm not a very good public speaker.
You got your point, thank you.
Give me smiles.
Thank you for coming along, Lisa. I have a couple of questions. My first one is on the gambling venue policy review. So we've got 4 options here. The 4th option is reducing our cap from 174 to 156. We've only had 156 for a number of years. Why would you not support that option?
Because I think a lot of people would expect us, because we can't get any more gaming machines. We've been around for a long time, so you'd expect us to go shrink it down, because that potentially could maximise our customer base for a while. But I'm very much of the ilk that it's a legal form of entertainment run by good operators. It's fundamentally good for our environment. A lot of our existing machines tend to be in existing venues that have been in places that potentially are lower decile, for instance. And then if you've got great areas, and Hutt is a really good example of this, where you're developing really well. You've got, we're going out, we've got Wollaston. If someone wanted to create a really nice venue in there, which has got both gaming and hospitality services, why would you necessarily want to limit that? So it's more from a community basis. I believe that controlled gambling can be a good thing, doesn't have to be shrunk. If you look at the amount of machines since I think 2003 has halved, and yet our problem gambling presentations has remained static all the way through. The reduction of machines does not mean a reduction in harm. So whereas the issue of having 16 licenses that are just sitting there if someone had an appropriate use for them.
My second question is alcohol licensing.
Yeah.
You support option 2. We've had a number of people come to us and say, why are we only sitting at the 80% when a lot of our other neighbours are looking at 90% or 100% recovery with that? What's your position on that?
Again, I think we're in a strange time, economic time frame. I think for any city to thrive, we kind of need to get the balance between enabling good business to be able to continue and also for people to be able to use it, as well as, you know, I understand the increase in costs, so which is why we're not opposed to recovery. It's a natural thing, we have to do it every day. But I do believe that it is a balance that we need to keep it an environment where people can go look to bring in new venues and become more, you know, being able to afford to be able to do it. If we just lose business, we're going to die.
Okay, can you get through quick, Councillor Carson?
Thank you, Lisa, for coming along. A number of, or some presenters, submitters, have commented on the harm that gaming machines does to Maori and Pacific Islander group. So first of all, have you seen that happening in the Upper Hutt Cosmic Club? And have you seen it happening in the other gaming machine operators in Upper Hutt whom you talk to, no doubt?
Not so much, as in I don't think I've ever actually had a conversation regarding the ethnicity of presentations. However, watching the Ministry of Health data that's coming through, there doesn't, I mean, I think it's 0.08% of the population over the age of 18 that currently have presentations for problem gambling. So it is quite a small proportion of players. We acknowledge that for those people on the top of the tower from that are experiencing harm, it can be extremely it can be devastating, which is why we work so hard to ensure that we see that and recognise it early, and also the reason why we've employed technology, for instance, like facial recognition, to be able to help, as well as making sure we stay part of the conversation to ensure that what we do safely.
Okay. So second question, so what attempts does the COSI Club do in terms of, once they've identified a problem gambler, what assistance does the COSI Club give? Okay,
so we first and foremost, I mean, our staff aren't counsellors, so as soon as we recognise that anyone is having difficulties, we'll have a conversation with them, and that's often in several layers. It may be the first conversation will be the person looking after gaming for the day, but then also escalate up to my desk. We offer information, also just continual conversation. If we don't feel that, I mean, the person obviously gets the opportunity to self-exclude, but if we feel like they're not wanting to take that opportunity, we will also exclude if we think that that's the best thing for them. And then we keep conversation. Like I had a conversation with a lady about 2 weeks ago who's coming out of an exclusion order in about 2 months. And so she sort of started talking about coming back and playing. So we've started having those conversations about how that would look like and what the risks are and where, you know, that sort of thing goes. And then we will monitor her quite, you know, closely. And if she decides to come back and do that, we will exclude again if necessary. We really do. It's not good business for us to have people that are suffering in our gaming room. So we do take that extremely seriously.
Councillor Kerr.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. I guess it's you've answered some of the questions around what you see in the room, but I guess we talk about these protections. Do we actually see the harm? You know, do you see the harm with all these things that you still have in place, and how does it track? Because that question of how we're inviting someone who clearly has a problem and is causing harm to themselves, and we're planning on how we allow them back in and enable them to then re-engage with that source of harm. How you know, how do you approach something like that?
We tend to see people before they get to the edge, especially in a club environment, because we tend to know who our members are. The biggest thing for us is actually changes in people's lives. It might be an older person, for instance, that loses a partner, or you might be disestablished in your job and suddenly your life has changed and you don't know quite what to do, and that's often a precursor that I've found in my around 30 years experience with gaming machines. So we tend to see those changes and start the conversations earlier than potentially what the popular stories of extreme harm get to, if that makes sense.
Thank you. It makes sense. Supplementary, please.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Then do you think there's a difference in terms of where these are located, whether that's a pub or a club, or no difference?
Not necessarily. I'll put my hand. I'll just disclose also. I am on the executive committee of the Gaming Machine Association, so I have a lot to do with both with class sports societies all the way around from the TAB through to the large trusts and societies. I think most, especially sort of smaller city venues and locals, class 4 pubs, for instance, are also good at what they do. I'm not naive enough to say that everyone is great at what they do, and the Gaming Machine Association, for instance, has been very vocal about ensuring that the regulations do look to target bad operators and get rid of them, and rather than overcomplicate good operators' lives. So I wouldn't say I think that they're any better at harm than clubs, but I can say as a club member who can walk through the club, and we tend to know who people are, especially our front of house staff. You know, if you walk to the bar and they've already got your beer out, or they know. They know who our members are. So we kind of do see if there is anything happening, and that is a real advantage, I think, for us.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Lisa.
All right, thank you.
Our next submitter is submitter 161, Teresa Homan. Welcome, Teresa.
I have a prepared speech, but listening to the last few speakers, I want to just say a couple of things, rhetorical questions. I just wonder, I thought this was, this planning annual plan was about, what I read, I found the whole thing a bit confusing, but I see something to do with finances and what have you. And I just wonder, what is yours? How do you get to make decisions about how people, you know, their entertainment and, you know, what has it got to do with you? It's a rhetorical question. You know, I hear people asking questions about Pacific Island people, and as you may well know, I work with people on benefits and what have you. How do councils get to judge how those people live? Yeah, I'm only putting that out there. You know, I'm a member of the club. My husband's been as a life member. It's a great place for the community to gather. It's been part of our life as a family for years, and I don't see a lot of harm happening because of it. Yeah, so I just put that out there before I get started. So good morning to your worship and you fellow councillors. I choose in this verbal presentation to digress from the selected topics of the annual plan to address issues of major importance that I signalled in my submission, decisions related to the formation of a combined council water entity and other considerations that impact the annual plan indirectly, such as increased revenue to the city through business activity. This is a picture of my father. You ask, why is she sharing her family pictures? Well, this is not just my father, but my father working on the then local power board. He was called out in the floods of the 70s to help restore power. Just a few weeks ago, we had bad weather across the Wellington region. Power was out and in Wellington took in some cases days to restore. This was attributed in part to the inability for Wellington Electric Lines Company, that is owned 100% by a company in the Bahamas, to restore, and concern has been raised about the line maintenance being secondary to profit, which may cause ongoing problems in the future. There are also concerns being raised about line charges, increasing costs on already unjustified line charges that are increasing power costs to the once owners of the power company, ratepayers, before it was privatised and now sold for profit a number of times. You ask, what has this to do with this submission on the council's annual plan? It has everything to do with it. If council loses its control on our water entity and opens the door to privatisation of our three waters, I ask that you act to protect ratepayers' ownership of any developed water entity. I encourage you to consider my suggestion that a structure be developed where ratepayers are major shareholders in any water company as of right and pay dividends in form of rate subsidies if a profit is made in the future. I want also to suggest that council incentivise business in the CBD to make their shops and businesses attractive facilities that encourage shoppers with loyalty vouchers, and in so doing encourage shoppers to shop in Upper Hutt. This could be encouraged by a public vote to identify the most popular business or shop in Upper Hutt annually and reward the retailer with 6 months rates rebate. On the other hand, any landlord who leaves shop buildings in the CBD empty and derelict are charged a penalty on their rates. Please also lower speeds around schools to 30 km at peak hours when children go to and leave school in busy traffic areas, and include more pedestrian crossings near these schools. Lastly, but not least, as this will likely be the last opportunity to address this council collectively, I want to thank you for what you have done and achieved for the Upper Hutt community. As you are aware, I stood for council last election, and I have to say, with all the social media vitriol and ill-informed criticism councils face, I'm glad I wasn't successful. So thanks, and especially thanks for the revamp of the H2O. Every city needs a pool, and thanks for the sports hub. It is a great facility that will serve the whole sporting community. And just in terms of my father, he was a convicted bookmaker.
You're hanging out the washing there. But thank you for those kind words, for those compliments. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Any questions for Teresa? No, but thank you very much. We appreciate that. Thank you. Our next presenter is submission 197, Peri Z. She's on Zoom. It's 197.
Kia ora.
Morning. You're
Morning.
ready to go. Submission 197.
Okay. I've got 197.
Thanks, Peri.
Thank you, Your Worship and councillors, for the opportunity to speak to your annual plan. I'd like to talk about recycling, forest rating differential, water investment, and about democracy and accountability. This council is one of the only in the country without a curbside recycling service. It simply has to be done, given it's the most efficient and least expensive way to deliver the service. There are two levers to keep the cost down for this transition. One is to make sure that the council timing of this service takes up the Ministry for the Environment funding to set it up. In my view, it would be irresponsible not to take up this funding while it's been offered for the final struggling councils. We're going to have to do curbside recycling at some point, and taking up funding reduces costs to our ratepayers in the long run. Secondly, seeking economies of scale through a combined rubbish and recycling service and through the potential collaboration with the Hutt City Council. Economies of scale is the best way to reduce household costs for waste. The council has significantly more bargaining power on behalf of 16,000 residents than individuals have, and we do not need a boutique recycling service. Secondly, I'd like to raise concerns that there was no explanation in the annual plan consultation about the forestry rate differential change. As a community, I think people would like to know why that change has been proposed and what the impacts are. Regarding water investment, I'd like to raise concerns on behalf of two groups of people. The government has taken most of the control away from councils because, broadly speaking, councils have not been responsible with investing steadily in asset renewals and new infrastructure. This is a decades-long issue, and it has become clear in spectacular fashion, with visible leaks increasing in the last few years. I'd like to acknowledge two groups of people that this affects significantly. One group is pensioners who do not have flexible incomes, and they now face significant increase in the future for services that they were not able to plan for in their retirement. Secondly, I'd like to raise the concerns for my generation and younger, who will have an unfair burden of fixing and renewing infrastructure because of the last few decades of sweating our assets. This council's ultra-conservatism isn't prudence. It's deferred cost onto mine and future generations while laying uncertainty for those with the least ability to pay. Our community deserves responsible, steady, long-term investment in infrastructure. I support the move to a regional multi-council owned entity, and I recommend that council propose a consumer charter to ensure that the entity protects vulnerable customers. Lastly, I want to talk about transparency, accountability, and a healthy democracy in relation to the mall deal and this annual plan consultation. Your long-term plan states we've targeted 5 non-core activities that will receive less funding and consulted the community on these. We're discontinuing most of our contestable grant funding, such as for event sustainability and economic development. 62% of the community supported removing the economic development stimulus grant due to the financially constrained times. The long-term plan also states we won't be delivering services to activate or improve the city centre, attract visitors, or promote city centre retail. We will no longer be pursuing business partnerships in which we have to invest financially. We are no longer funding economic development stimulus grants. We will not be completing planned development of an integrated integrated city centre strategy. Yet, as a council, you decided to negotiate a deal with a singular landowner for shifting around large format retailers in the main street. This deal appears to propose debt funding of $1.5 million for an outcome that could be generously described as uninspiring. I have many questions. There is still so much that is unclear about all of this. But my questions for the councillors are, where in the annual plan is the $1.5 million for the proposed deal tagged? And why hasn't this significant change in direction from the long-term plan been flagged in the annual plan consultation? It's a matter of high public interest. It is also highly inconsistent with the council's stated direction. So how can councillors be comfortable with the assessment that this did not warrant public consultation in the annual plan? Secondly, is debt funding corporate welfare at a time of high rates rises a responsible use of public money? Thirdly, if you did have concerns about any of this, why were these not raised publicly? Productive disagreement and raising your concerns is a sign of a healthy democracy. Going silent during a crisis of confidence in the council is not. Raising concerns is not predetermination, and talking about the deal could have been done in such a way that respected legal privilege. It seems to me there's a vacuum of power and a void of accountability. I've encouraged the community to give councillors the benefit of the doubt before we know where you stood on this issue. But staying silent looks like you're protecting the organisation's reputation above your duty to your community. I'm happy to take some questions.
Any questions? Councillor Holderness?
Hi, Peri. I just wondered about the recycling. We've heard a lot from rural people about the that they're keen to retain the recycling centre as a whole. Obviously, with the proposal that we've got on the table, option one would mean that the recycling centre would go. What are your thoughts around retaining the recycling centre?
I've spoken to some of the councillors in Lower Hutt about their service, and they say that the public service is available to rural people, rural households, unless there's like a really particular reason why they can't access it. So I would encourage council to look into how that could be incorporated here, especially if you get better economies of scale. Perhaps that would make it more viable to cover rural properties for recycling. We don't have an enormous area in terms of the amount of extra properties that would need to be covered in that rural those rural properties. So I think I would encourage first looking into whether it was possible that that could be included, and then obviously there needs to be some consideration of what would be provided for the communities that couldn't access that service.
Further questions? No further questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next submitter is submission 250. It's Janine Bridgeman from Public Service Session. Welcome.
My name is Janine Bridgeman and I am PSA organiser for the Upper Hutt City Council. The New Zealand Public Service Association, PSA, is the largest trade union in New Zealand with over 96,000 members, including 1,200 working in local government. For 110 years, people have joined the PSA to negotiate their terms of employment collectively, to have a voice within their workplace and to have an independent corporate voice on the quality of public and community services and how they're delivered. Local democracy is a cornerstone for PSA. Vibrant communities are underpinned by strong democratic institutions that support and maximise citizen participation in local decisions. As the Union for Public and Community Services, we have a strong interest in ensuring that local government has a strong public service that is resourced and supported to deliver for communities. The PSA in Upper Hutt represents approximately 1,600 members who live and or work in Upper Hutt, including 60 members who work for Upper Hutt Council and its agencies. All these members have a strong interest as residents of Upper Hutt in the plan and how it implements the aspirations and intention of the annual plan. Members employed by Upper Hutt Council and its agencies have an additional interest in how they will affect their jobs, working conditions, and the important work they do to benefit their community. Our submission has been prepared based on the feedback by the local PSA members who work in the Upper Hutt City Council. The annual plan is a well thought out and clear document that shows the ongoing goals of Upper Hutt City Council. It is positive to see a reduction in rates despite a previous projected substantial ongoing increase. While this will offer some relief to the community, it is important to continue to ensure that appropriate rates and good financial decisions making is made to ensure that in areas such as resourcing, fair pay and a living wage can be continued to be offered. We have used this opportunity to respond to some of the items mentioned in the annual plan, but also to present the PSA position on ensuring that the council remains a good employer and also the potential budget commitments that may incur. We note the council's commitment to maintaining infrastructure and acknowledge the need to prioritise and develop budget. As this was mentioned in the annual plan, we wanted to use the opportunity to share the PSA's position for staffing infrastructure, which is services for the public good, not private profit. While councils have a role in setting conditions that support local private business to thrive, this is not the same as passing on ratepayers' money to fund private contracting accounts. We call on the Upper Hutt Council to ensure that local public and community services be delivered publicly by organisations that are accountable to their communities and not to shareholders. These services should be kept in-house rather than outsourced and removed to the council control organisation. Based on that, we do support the curbside recycling option one, as this would see the services delivered in-house. We note the annual plan and the need to balance the books. We acknowledge the financial constraints. However, from the PSA perspective, keeping employees, their institutional knowledge and their organisational loyalty is vital to ensuring that local government and keep providing high levels of service to our communities. Further to this, the council must ensure safe workloads for its employees. Safe workloads are critical for health and wellbeing of workers and sustainable patient. The current pay structure of staff working at the council offers no real policy progression. Many members have reported no visibility of how they move up the bands and staying on the same salary step. We have initiated bargaining, and as such, we cannot discuss the current negotiations. However, we wanted to take this opportunity because council sets the budgets, and without the money, you can't deliver. We believe that we can accommodate and present an improved room system for the staff. Fair pay and good working conditions for staff over time, along with resources to maintain good staff levels that meet the volume of work required without resorting to unsafe work. To deliver this, it will require allocating enough resources and budget to increase staff pay and allow movement within pay bands while keeping up with the cost of living. Council will need to set aside enough resources to maintain staffing levels that also maintain safe work roads. The position we advocate for throughout the submission is around fair pay, adequate resourcing, and we acknowledge that this costs money. We would strongly seek the support of budgets to help deliver a better REM system for the staff here at Upper Hutt City Council. We believe the costs are justified, and investing now is likely to be more affordable than in the long run. We support rising rates to let Upper Hutt City Council fully fund its public and community services, pay its staff fairly, and resource them adequately. No one likes paying more rates, but it's important to invest in the things that we need and the things that make Upper Hutt a well-functioning, resilient city where people want to live. We look forward to future budget commitments to help deliver a living wage and fair system.
Thank you, Janine. Any questions? Councillor Carson, then Councillor Bentley.
Coming along, last year the PSA submitted on our long-term plan proposals and strongly criticised us for increasing rates up to 19%. Yet this year you say that you're supporting increasing rates. So I'd like to know how come the PSA have changed their position?
To support the rates, because rates is one of the main revenues to help pay for things. The tricky one to balance is there is a need to increase them, and it's not ideal, but it's one of the main revenues for this council. So in order to get paid staff effectively, we would support that.
Yeah, Councillor Bentley.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you, Janine, for your presentation. Just curious about the part around public transport in the submission, that we should subsidise the remaining fares that someone would pay on public transport. Are you aware that we're not currently involved in public transport at Upper Hutt City Council?
Yeah, that would be more if you were to be involved.
If we were to be involved. Yeah, okay, thank you.
Any other questions? No other questions. Thank you very much, Janine. Thank you. Now that brings us to an end to our submissions. And just remind everyone that all the submissions will be considered during our deliberation and plan, which will take place on the 11th of June. So with that, at 11:14, close the meeting.